Welcome to the Cantina Chatter podcast.
Turn up your nostalgia.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm Victoria, your host here on the Cantina Chatter podcast, your resource for Star Wars, new and retro toys, pop culture, and randomness from the 80s and 90s. Hey guys, and welcome back to the show. We are already, approaching mid-December? Where is the time going? Like, this month is just like zooming by, just like these past few months have, just like 2019 has zoomed by. In fact, it's ridiculously insane. Star Wars. There's a lot of it going around right now. Jedi Fallen Order, the video game. I still haven't picked it up. I intend to do that very soon. Get some playtime racked up on that, especially as we get nearer to the holidays and I'll have more time to do that. The Mandalorian is in full swing. We're 4 episodes in, and we'll be talking about The Mandalorian episodes 3 and 4 in the next episode of Cantina Chatter. And we also got The Rise of Skywalker. Can you guys believe that this movie is coming, like, next week? Like, isn't that crazy? This new trilogy is going to be closed out. It feels like it just got started. Like, I feel like we were just in 2015, and The Force Awakens was coming out, and it's just like, wow, here we are 4 years later. Time really flies, like I'm saying. But yeah, there's a lot to be excited for if you're a Star Wars fan. And my guest on this show, the incredible Dan O from the Dan O channel on YouTube, who is our theme parks correspondent here on Cantina Chatter, is going to be joining me to talk Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland. You may recall that Dan O was on a previous episode of the podcast, and we were talking about Galaxy's Edge right after it opened. Now we've both got multiple visits under our belts, and we've gone to digest it and kind of experience more of what it has to offer over the last several months. So we're going to be talking about Batuu and what Galaxy's Edge is like, and our thoughts as time has gone along regarding Galaxy's Edge, and the things we like, the things that could maybe be better, and the things that we'd like to see. So it's a great chat. I hope that you enjoy it. We also got to talk about that Wonder Woman 1984 trailer. I mean, that looks fantastic. I was a huge fan of the first film. I love it still. And I think this is going to be a really exciting movie. I mean, the trailer looks great. But not just that. The next day, we also got Ghostbusters Afterlife. That's kind of a crazy title, but I can kind of dig it. I mean, it kind of ties into the theme of ghosts and all that. So yeah, it looks cool too. It seems like it's lacking a little bit of the comedy type aspect of, that made the first film so famous. So I don't know if they're just kind of saving that, but I don't know. It just seems like it looked a little more serious to me. But either way, I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan. That was my very first, we're talking about franchises. That was kind of my first franchise love, I guess. Back in the late 80s when the real Ghostbusters was on TV, and Ghostbusters 2, I remember seeing that in the theater long time ago. I'm really looking forward to this movie. I hope it's going to be fantastic. I'm stoked, and there'll be a lot of great stuff to talk about next year with those films coming out. But let's keep it focused on Star Wars. Let's go ahead and pull in Dan O, and we'll go ahead and return to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. All right, my guest on this episode is none other than Dan O from the Dan O channel on YouTube. A few months back, we spoke about his first visit to Galaxy's Edge over at Disneyland. And here we are, several months later. I've finally gone to visit it a couple of times, so I think we're going to have a pretty fun chat discussing all things but two. So, Dan O, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me back on. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you again. I really enjoyed our last chat and had a lot of good feedback about it. So, yeah, it's awesome to have you back so we can talk a little bit Galaxy's Edge. So, yeah, here we are several months later. How many times have you been to Galaxy's Edge?
I would say about 8, I think.
Oh,
I kind of quit counting after a while. But during like the reservation period, it was 3 times, and I feel like I've been about 5 times since then.
Right on. And how has it changed for you since that very first visit?
It's more like home. Like for me, I feel like it actually changed Disneyland for me a lot. Like I've been going to Disneyland since probably the early 2000s. I've been going regularly. And now the last like 8 times I've been has all been focused on Galaxy's Edge. I hardly spend any time in the parks. I've spent almost no time in California Adventure. Because I don't live locally, I live in Las Vegas and I have to travel. When I do go, it's for usually some kind of a meetup or an event or something. And every time I've been, whether it's D23 or just something, it's kept me in Galaxy's Edge. So the biggest change is that Disneyland to me is not the same. It's mostly Galaxy's Edge visits now. And it's weird.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. The dynamic is certainly different. As we talked about in the last episode, they did make a lot of physical changes to the park in order to accommodate Galaxy's Edge. Some of them are very small, like planter sizes changing, just minor things like that. And some of them are kind of big, like the Rivers of America being downsized and parts of Frontierland being demolished. But yeah, it's definitely different. What I do like is that it is pretty well contained. I know that was one of the things I was concerned about. Is it going to interfere too much with everything going around it? But it really doesn't. I mean, it does seem pretty well contained. The only thing that I think sticks out is like the mountains. You can kind of see them from everywhere.
Yeah, you can see, Big Thunder. You can see stuff like that. But you're right. It absolutely feels like you're in your own separate park. It doesn't really feel like Disneyland when you're in there, which is pretty cool. They nailed that really well.
Yes, they did. I think that's one of the things about it that I've really enjoyed so far is that it is certainly very immersive. And I know that's one of the things that you touched on last time was that they did a really nice job making it realistic, making it feel like, some planet that you would encounter in Star Wars. And, all the details are certainly there in that regard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, and now that it's been around and we've had our chance to kind of explore it, it is definitely a bigger like shopping experience. It's mostly shopping experience at the moment. We're a couple weeks away from Rise of Resistance opening in Florida, and then a month and a half or so from it opening in California. But even once Rise of Resistance opens, I think it's still gonna feel like mostly a shopping experience. But as a Star Wars collector, I'm okay with that. How did you feel about that?
There certainly is a lot of merchandise. It is very merchandise based.
It really is.
And like you noted, right now there's only really Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. So, that with that being the case, all you can really do is shop.
I mean, there's the experiences like Savi's Workshop, and sure, you're building a $200 lightsaber, but it's also very much an experience.
Yes.
The Droid Depot, which I love, and I've even started a droid builders group because of it. Yeah. That's not as much of an experience. That's fun, and I love doing it. It's actually one of my favorite things in all of Galaxy's Edge, but it's not so much experience as much as shelling out $100 for a droid toy.
Yeah. I think that's really cool that they do have unique merchandise and there's a lot of stuff there. But like Disneyland, it is a premium sort of thing. Like not just the experiences with the lightsabers, but in general, the merchandise is a little bit expensive.
It is. It definitely is. And what's crazy to me is that how quickly prices went up on certain things. Some of the things like legacy lightsabers that were started at $109 within like a month or two jumped up to 119.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
you see like these decent sized increases on a lot of merchandise. And I was like, wow, that was, and I don't know what that's attributed to, but I just thought that was one of the fastest increases in prices I've ever seen on stuff at Disneyland.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that is pretty wild. I want to say when I was there the first time, which was last month in October, I think they told me it was like 119, but then you had to buy the blade separate.
Yeah, that's always been that way with the blade
Okay.
separate. But initially, those ones that were 119 were $109. Like basically all the legacy lightsabers went up about $10.
Yeah, those lightsabers though, the hilts are really, really cool.
Oh, they're really nice. Yeah, I had the Jedi Temple Guard and the Ahsoka
Nice.
Tano set. Those are really good.
Yeah, those are the ones that I have my eye on right now for next time that I go because you know, I mean, Master Replicas and Hasbro put quite a few out, but they haven't gotten those ones out, so those are pretty unique.
Yeah, no, they've got a pretty cool selection.
Yeah, that's a pretty good store. Also, it's like there's all kinds of.
Oh yeah, Doc
yeah.
Ondar's is one of the coolest places just to look around and see
Yeah.
everything on the walls, and yeah, it's an amazing store.
Yeah, lots of little Easter eggs in there for sure if you're a longtime Star Wars fan. But yeah, so yeah, it is very immersive. I kind of feel like they may have gone a little bit too much in that regard because I feel like one of the things that is lacking a little bit is there not being music other than when you walk through the tunnels and kind of, you know, immerse in Galaxy's Edge. Like,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. There is some kind of like if you're hanging out around Savi's workshop, that if you listen to the noises, it's not really music like you'd hear in other lands of the park, but there are certain sounds like metal chimes that are going on. I ended up filming a video there one day, and I was like in that area for about 30 minutes, and I got to hear like the audio loop go around a couple times. I was like, okay, that is interesting. I never really would have noticed all of those sounds. The sounds are there, but they're way more subtle than they are in other parts of the park, like in other parts of Disneyland.
right. Yeah, no, that is true. There are sounds. One of the ones that I really like is the flyover sound effect when, you know, ships
Oh,
coming
that's
and
the
landing.
best. 'Cause everybody always looks up. Everyone looks around. I'm like, oh, what was it? Because it's total surround sound. It does start on one end, and through the speakers, it moves to like, you know, your other side, and you can kind of like, you know, you can't really feel it, but like you can definitely hear the sound move around you, and that's pretty cool the way they did that.
Yeah, no, it's great. One of the other things, of course, that is you know, quite prominent is, you know, you have the couple of stormtroopers that are, you know, going around and interrogating people.
Yeah, providing comic relief around the land. They're great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Like it's just like two, right? Is that all they have is just two troopers that are constantly walking around?
It's that Kylo Ren walks around. You'll get Rey and Chewbacca, but yeah,
Yeah,
just two
yeah.
two of the stormtroopers, and they do that little First Order show periodically over by
Yeah.
the First Order area.
Yeah, I did get to see that. They were like up on like a platform or something, and you kind of just talking.
Yeah, they kind of do a little mini show, a talk, and then the stormtroopers walk around. Sometimes accompanied with Kylo Ren, sometimes not. But that's actually now that you bring up like the live actor stuff, that's one of the things that I actually think we need more of in Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah,
That's kind of what's missing from making it Star Wars, right?
yeah, totally.
We need aliens, like even Jawas or something would be
Yeah,
cool, especially
yeah.
now with Mandalorian coming out and the off-world Jawas and stuff like that. It's just like it's fun.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
neat to see those aliens.
Absolutely. Or speaking of Mandalorian, with my last guest, I was just talking about how I felt that you know, seeing that first episode of Mandalorian, it looked a little bit like Batuu.
It did. It really did. Yeah. I just hope there's more to come. I hope there's more integration with all of these stories, and you know, I want Batuu to be more solidified as a canon thing. We know it is because they told us it's canon, but I want story integration with either TV or films more so than just a verbal nod. You know, sometimes they'll just like mention it in passing, like on Solo, they mention, oh, Black Spire, oh, is Doc Ondar here? You know, stuff like that. I want a little bit more than that. I want to see something.
Yeah, no, that is true. It would be cool if there was a stronger connection to the films or the television. But yeah, I totally agree on the walk around characters. I mean, especially in the Cantina, I love seeing, you know, everything that's in there. But I kind of feel like if there were a few walk around like aliens in there, that would just like really add to the atmosphere.
That's it. And, you know, it could be really easily done. Like, they just have to have someone in the makeup just come out, walk around, circle the bar, and go backstage periodically. That would do.
Yeah.
It's so simple. Just a quick walk through the bar, and done. Because I understand with as hot as it was, especially over the summer and everything, doing someone in full alien makeup, that's not super easy to do. I mean, characters do it in the park regularly, but still with the Star Wars and, you know, I don't know. But even if it was just contained in the air-conditioned area of the Cantina, just periodically have like a Trandoshan or something, or a Rodian walk around. That would definitely change the vibe so much if they added just those little things. One thing they did in Florida during the Star Wars weekends was they had Jawa trading. They had like little people dressed up as Jawas, and they would have like a little, you know, in their little satchel, they would have droid parts over in Tomorrowland at Tomorrowland Traders or Star Traders. They have the build your own droid section, little action figure version. And you could trade a trinket, like anything in your purse or pocket or whatever, with these Jawa characters. And they would, like, you know, either accept it or ask for something else to trade or whatever. And they would trade you like a little droid piece. And it was a cheap, easy, immersive thing that they did in Hollywood Studios for Star Wars weekends. And I think that's something they should do at Galaxy's Edge, is bring those Jawa actors over here.
Right. Yeah, that would be awesome. Even like creatures, like, you know, speaking of like Salacious Crumb or, you know, any of those kinds of, you know, the smaller like practical type aliens, it'd be cool if there was like windows or you could see them kind of like moving around or something.
Yeah. There should definitely be more of that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few in Bina's Creature Stall, but there definitely could be more.
Yeah, like the Lothcat. That one is interesting. I wish it was a little more animated, but
yeah, that one doesn't do a whole lot. There's a lot of stuff in there though. If you look like up in the ceiling and stuff, there's like eyes peeking out and stuff every once in a while. You have to sit and really study for it, but it's there. It's there.
Yeah. No, that's true. I've noticed a few kids go up to the Lothcat and be like, "Where's its head?"
Yeah, it is kind of hard because its eyes are closed and it's kind of hard to tell. Like, what is it?
But the creature shop is actually really cool. They got some really cool merchandise in there.
Yeah, they've got some like deep cuts, like the Nibre. That's a pretty deep cut toy. Like, I have one. I'm like one of the only people I know who bought the Nibre.
Yeah, or the Puffer Pig.
The Puffer Pig, yeah. I actually know quite a few people who went for the Puffer Pig.
Nice.
I was pretty proud. I was like, yeah, you guys know your stuff. Good.
Yeah, my husband wants one of the Kowikian monkey lizards.
Oh my god, I love mine. I love it. I wish it was a little louder. But for what it is, it's fun. I have fun with it.
It's neat. Last time they were sold out of the blue one. They only had the brown one.
Oh, okay. That's the one I got, was the blue one. I got that. I got lucky that opening weekend.
They're both really cool. One thing I haven't done yet is like eaten any of the food. I've tried like the beverages and stuff, you know, the Cantina and the blue milk, green milk, all that, but haven't had an opportunity to try the food. Has the food really changed from what you've seen so far over the past few months?
You know, they got rid of one of my favorite dishes. It was the Ithorian garden loaf. It was it's like a vegetarian meatloaf. And actually it was one of the things that me and my wife, who's a vegetarian, really liked. Like, we both were like, no, this is really good. Me as a meat eater and her is not one. And it's one of the first things to go. It's not there anymore. Everything else seems to be there. I've heard that they're going to be swapping stuff out periodically. So we might see some changes. There was some controversy recently about the name changes in Florida. Like, instead of just calling it Endorian Tip Yip, they had to add fried chicken to the name. And for a week, it just said fried chicken, like Endorian fried chicken. They got rid of Tip Yip altogether. Just because I guess they have more of a foreign crowd and they may not know based on the Star Wars name. So it was causing some confusion, I guess. So they're still kind of like workshopping how they're doing that. But as far as the food goes, they just added some stuff in October. They added some new, like a new kind of popcorn. It's like, I believe it's a cinnamon chocolate cinnamon popcorn, something like that.
Interesting.
They added a new vegetarian Ronto wrap. Yeah, it's like a plant-based meat Ronto wrap.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else I think those are the two big things. There's at least one other like small item that they added. And I don't know. I'm definitely going to try them all when I go this upcoming week.
Yeah. Let me know how they are, because I mean, from what I've seen, everything certainly looks interesting. We just haven't, the past couple of times we've gone, we've had like reservations at some of the other restaurants in the parks.
Oh, you know what's really cool, actually, if you can't make it to the park, especially for any listeners who maybe aren't near one of the Disney parks, they did put out a Galaxy's Edge cookbook recently.
Oh, yeah, I think I saw that.
Yeah, it's about, I think $30 is like the regular, the average price for it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever. But it's a cool read. The first like 10 or so pages are story. They're about the cook, whose name is Cookie, who worked on Takodana. And he's the one who runs Docking Bay 7. And so he explains a lot of the dishes. And they're not exact to what's in the park. Some of them are. Some of them are like the Ronto wrap's a bit different from what you actually get in the park. But a lot of the drinks are there. Not all of the drinks from the Cantina, but a lot of them are. And a bunch of new stuff that we haven't seen before. But all of it has a very cool like Star Wars look to it. It's a really cool read. I was actually thumbing through it earlier tonight. And just thinking, like, what should I make? But for any listeners who are really, like, into, like, trying new, different Star Wars food, definitely pick up that cookbook.
Yeah, I'll definitely need to get it, too, because that sounds awesome. But, yeah, I totally believe you when you say that some of the recipes are slightly different because, I have this book from one restaurant that had a recipe for one of their dishes. And years later, they came out with another cookbook, and the recipe that one is different for the exact same dish. That's like, why?
Yeah,
they didn't change it like when you go eat it at the restaurant. But
yeah,
it's
weird how they do that. Maybe they don't want to give away the trade secrets of the park or something.
Could be, yeah. As far as the beverages go, I did try on my first visit. I did have the blue milk. I felt like that was a must-have. It was a little weird.
The mouthfeel is weird, right? It's kind of like it's like slushy, but it's a little like thick, like jelly almost.
Right.
But yeah, it is a weird mouthfeel. I like both of them. At first, I didn't really like the green as much. I thought it was a little too floral. But upon having it a second time, I was like, you know what? I actually do enjoy this. I haven't done a mixed yet, though.
Yeah.
And I haven't done the ones in Florida. I haven't been to Florida. I'm actually going on December 5th for the opening of Rise of Resistance.
So awesome.
So when I'm there, I'm going to try the alcoholic versions.
Ooh.
It's like the green one I think has tequila and the blue one has rum in it.
Oh man, I'm going to have to go just for those.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to try those out.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, it's got an interesting texture. Like you said, it's really like icy at first. I kind of find that I enjoy it a little more once it starts to melt a little bit.
Yeah,
it's weird.
It's a little bit easier to drink.
Yeah, and last time we went, which was last Friday, I had the green, and I kind of feel like I like the green a little bit better.
I feel there's definitely two people in the world, right? There's people who like the blue better, people who like the green better. But it's kind of floral, right? It's like citrusy but floral.
Yeah.
There's something in there that's kind of like potpourri or something.
It was really hard to pinpoint. I let my husband taste it, and we couldn't really figure it out. It definitely seems a little more earthy, I guess, than the blue one.
Yeah, definitely.
But
it's good though. It's good in a different way.
Right. It's definitely different, and like you said, I guess two kinds of people, green and blue. It's like there's waffle people and there's pancake people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So. They have a similar beverage in the Cantina, don't they? I think it's the Blue Bantha. It's the blue milk, non-alcoholic, but it has like a cookie on top or something.
Yeah, it's got like a coconut Bantha cookie on top. It's the same milk, except for it's not frozen; it's chilled. So you'd probably like that better if you like to let it, wait and cool off a bit and like warm up a smidge, because it's cold, but it's just not frozen.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it looks really pretty, but when I saw that it was non-alcoholic, it was like...
Yeah, it's like, why spend that much money? Why spend $15 on a drink that's not alcoholic?
Yeah. Speaking of the Cantina, both times that we've gone, we've made reservations. We've gone in, had a couple drinks, and it's lively.
Any favorites on the drinks?
I like the one that I had last time. I like quite a bit. I think is it called like the Dagobah?
The Slug Slinger, Dagobah Slug Slinger.
That one, yeah.
That one's really good. It has like a sprig of rosemary in it. That is a good one. That actually has a really good taste to it.
Yeah, that one.
Did you try the Fuzzy Tauntaun?
I have not had that yet. I know that you told me last time about how it kind of numbs your lips.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling. It's just a fun experience.
Next time,
I like the taste of it too, though, because it's not overly sweet.
Yeah.
Because sometimes those Disney drinks are a little, for my preference, are a little too sugary or a little too sweet.
True.
When it comes to like the mixed alcoholic beverages. But that one's not too bad. It's actually kind of a tangy. It's a little sweet, but it's more tangy than it is sweet, and that's why I like it. That and Jedi Mind Trick.
I think my husband got the Jedi Mind Trick, and it was pretty good.
Yeah, it's got like some kind of lavender vodka or something like that. It's another like herbal or flavor, flowery kind of alcohol, and it gives it one of those flavors. It's again less sweet.
I think the one that I had the first time was I think it was called like the Bespin.
Bespin Fizz.
Yeah, and it was tiny.
Yeah. Oh no! If it was the tiny little one, that was the Jet Juice.
Nope, that's what it was. You're right.
The tiny one is Jet Juice. It's actually the strongest one, which is why it's so tiny. That one's really good. I like the flavor on that one a lot.
It was flavorful.
But again, yeah, the only downside is it's small but powerful.
Yeah, those are the ones that'll get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the drinks are good. Pricey, but it's expected.
Yeah.
Other than that, it'll be interesting to see how like the menus evolve in these, in the Cantina.
I had read an article. I think it was Scott Trowbridge, one of the creators, who was saying that they tested out 300 dishes.
Oh wow!
So there's a lot of options out there for them to swap in a new dish periodically and kind of keep the menu fresh.
Yeah, you would think that they'd almost have to do that because I know a lot of people are visiting it a lot, and it seems like they'd want to do that.
Yeah, and I know like initially they had mentioned something about a fish dish, and then it never showed up, and so maybe it'll show up later down the road. Who knows?
Yeah, that'd be interesting, especially if they made it to look like something out of Star Wars.
Yeah.
So as far as other things go, is there anything else that you've noticed about Galaxy's Edge that's changed, or things that you really enjoy about it?
One of the things that's changed isn't so much about Galaxy's Edge as much as it is the fandom around it. Is we're starting to see different social gatherings and social groups do things. One of the first ones I attended was a lightsaber meetup that was run through the Galaxy's Edge Discord. And it was a bunch of people who, all love Galaxy's Edge and all love lightsabers. And some of them were lightsabers from Galaxy's Edge. Some of them were, Ultra Sabers or Master Replicas. And it was, about 40 people showed up and all, took a big group picture in front of the Falcon with their lightsabers. And shortly after that, I think the next day, actually, I hosted a droid builders meetup. So I started a club for people who built droids at the Droid Depot and then want to further customize them, like weathering them and adding, just do whatever, just further customize that toy. Yeah. And we've got some amazingly creative people. There's like Sabine droids. There's people who have made them into like full looking like war machine droids. And this is all the same like $100 droid from the Droid Depot. And we had our second meetup in October, and it was way bigger. It had doubled in size. We had at least 60 people there. I think it was about 50 droids total showed up. And so we're starting to see these like little social gatherings happen. And even last weekend for Life Day, there was a big Life Day meetup. And it looked like a lot of fun. A lot of people showed up and they made their little glowing orbs and they wore like red hoodies. And some people even had red robes. And they went and they sang like Star Wars versions of Christmas carols. And they hung out with Chewbacca. And it was like it was a big Wookiee Life Day celebration on Galaxy's Edge. And it's like for the first time ever, we could do that. People could do that.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous idea, but it's so cool that we're like, that's where we're at now.
That's really cool.
To me, that's the biggest change, that the fandom has found different ways to, congregate in Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, with everything you're doing with the droids and the club, it looks fun. Hopefully one of these days I'll get around to building a droid and be able to attend one of these meetups.
Yeah. We're going to be doing them probably every other month or sometimes even every month, just because people keep bugging me. When's the next one? So we'll probably keep doing them more often. I may not make it out to every single one, but it's definitely a growing club. And same with the lightsaber thing. That group's getting bigger and bigger every time they meet up. And so I don't know what the next little group that's going to pop up is, but I'm sure there will be something.
Yeah, maybe a Cantina group or... Who knows?
Exactly.
But yeah, no, I really enjoy seeing all the parked ships around there. The Falcon, I think the first time that I walked in there and saw that, it was like, it is pretty surreal because I've never
kind of
seen.
takes your breath away, doesn't it? Like,
yeah.
I remember being at a loss for words. I was kind of like holding back happy tears. Kind of, I was like, oh wow, like just seeing the size of it and knowing that it's there.
Yeah.
It's really there. Like that's
yeah,
it's amazing.
And all the way around it, there's plenty of detail. Like it's not just it's not just like a facade, or it's not just like they did half the ship. They did the whole ship, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. It's every inch of that thing is it's there. It's all there. And when you go to Smuggler's Run, you see like the backside of it, and you see it in even more detail. And if you use the app and you play the datapad app, it asks you like trivia questions. It asks you like when you're in the windows behind it, it has you count like as part of the game you're playing. It'll be like, how many of these triangle-shaped pieces can you find? Or which hose is this thing connected to? And you have to be looking at all the details of the Falcon to answer these trivia questions to get more points for your in-game character on the datapad, which is another like whole part of the park. I don't even think we really like discussed a whole lot yet.
Yeah, no, that is an interesting thing to bring up because if you get the Disney Play app, you can actually go in there and start scanning things and hacking things, and there is that bit. I tried it last time. I think I was probably the only person that was actually doing it, but
oh really?
Yeah, I was communicating with Hondo, and he was asking me to create like a fake personality, and then he was testing me, and he was asking me to look for things.
Yeah, that's definitely the Smuggler's Run portion of it. It's just a cool like extra thing to do. And it's I don't know, I find it a lot of fun. I can't wait to see what the new stuff that gets unlocked once Rise of Resistance opens.
Yeah,
because there's going to be more stuff to scan in that queue. There's probably going to be some kind of update and more missions to go on. But one of the things that I think is lacking is initially we were promised, or at least we were told in the presentations, that if you choose to align yourself as a Resistance person, that maybe you would be, the cast members would know it and would treat you that way or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And I only had one interaction really where I saw any of that. And I was purchasing something at the Toydarian Toy Makers, and the cast member who rung me up, I gave them my Disney annual pass holder thing, my pass, and to get my discount. And when he rang it up, he said, "Oh, I see you've been slicing door panels around here, and I saw that you banged up the Falcon a little bit. Hondo's gonna be pretty mad." I was like, okay, that's cool. Like, I like that cast member went, saw that or whatever, because I had on the datapad, I had been slicing a bunch of panels, and I unlocked one of the ranks that was like Master Slicer or something. So, he commented on that, and I was like, oh, that's cool. He was able to do that, but that only happened once, and that was probably on like my third visit. And since then, it hasn't happened at all.
Interesting. Yeah, that I was actually wondering about that because it seemed like they did kind of hype that aspect of it up a little bit before it opened, but I haven't heard a whole lot of people really experiencing that. I know I haven't. But yeah, the fact that it happened to you at least once kind of seems, it sounds like they're doing it. It's just more maybe a limited basis or something.
Yeah, or maybe it's just based on cast member participation. Like they don't have to do it, but they can if they want.
True.
And most maybe don't want. I don't know, but yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah, it could very well be. Speaking of Smuggler's Run, has that changed for you? Because I know initially you said you enjoyed it, but maybe not as much as some of the other rides at Disneyland. Has that changed at all?
No, it hasn't changed. I think I feel the same about it. It's fun, and I like doing the queue and like going through everything. Piloting is cool. Being a gunner is cool. I still prefer to be the engineer, which is weird. Everybody always wants to do the other ones, but I am better at being an engineer, which is why I prefer it. I'm terrible at being a gunner. I don't know if when you went, did you get to like try all three positions, or did you just do?
I haven't done all three yet. The first time we went, I was a pilot, and I was terrible. And
right, it's fun and it's cool, but it's kind of hard, and I don't want that pressure on me.
It is hard because I was steering, I think, side to side, and my husband had up and down. So just kind of having to coordinate it. It was
you have to kind of like yell at each other and like to coordinate it. So I've been on with people who were yelling at each other, and it was a mix of emotions because I was like, okay, it's a little annoying that you guys are yelling at each other, but at the same time, you're getting the job done. And we actually ended up getting like almost 13,000 points. It was 12,000 something, which is 13,000 or 1299 is like, or 12,999 is the highest you can get. So it was like one of the best scores I ever had. I was an engineer, and there was these two guys like yelling as pilots, and I was like, okay, it's a bit much. But at the same time, we did really well. So I was like, okay,
Nice.
you do have to kind of coordinate and get your stuff together to make that work.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, engineer is the position for me. That's for sure.
That's what we had last time, was the engineer position, and it was easier than flying, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And gunner's fun if you do it automatically, but if you set it to manual, which I didn't know until the second time I was a gunner, there's two options. If you hit the buttons before the ride starts, you can choose, but there's one that's manual, and you can shoot down, you can shoot middle, and you can shoot up.
Interesting.
And depending on where the ship is, it just gets very difficult to like precision shoot that way, because if you're all the way at the top of the screen or whatever, it's shooting up, it's like, is shooting up too high up, or should I shoot down because we're so high up? And
Right.
it wasn't very clear, and it didn't seem to give good results. So that's why I'm like, you know what, I don't need to be a gunner. And I felt like doing it on automatic was just way too easy. You can just blindly sit there and just hit the button forever. At least engineer, I had to look to my side on occasion to be like, okay, the ones that are lit up, let me just hit those. So that's why I like that one.
Yeah. No, it definitely seemed a little more chill than piloting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I felt like also like one thing between piloting and engineering was that when I was engineering, I felt like I wasn't like looking at the screen quite as much.
That's true.
I guess by default, if you're piloting, you're kind of trying to see where you're going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I certainly that first time we were in there and piloting and sitting in those those iconic seats was really something. I felt like
So that's probably the best way to experience it, is to be a pilot first. That way, because the first time I did it, I was an engineer, and I was like, it's okay. And, I was like, it's fine. But being a pilot, if you're being a pilot first, then you kind of get to see the whole thing and do it. I think that's the best way to do it, if you can be a pilot first and then do the other roles, whether it's gunner or engineer, because you do kind of get, as an engineer specifically, you do look away from the screen. You're looking more at the buttons sometimes, depending on how well your team's doing. So
Right.
yeah, you did it the right way.
nice. We just got lucky, I guess.
Yeah.
So I mentioned that there's no music, or not really any like proper music. How do you think How do you think it would be different if it did have music? I'm curious, because have you been to like the Wizarding World, like at Universal?
I went once, so I don't remember it too well. I didn't get to take it all in and really observe, so I don't remember what the music was like there.
Okay. Yeah, it just seems like I think it's just kind of on a loop. It's just like different, like some of the soundtrack music, and I think they have custom tracks too that like evoke the feelings of the movie soundtracks. So
Yeah.
I wonder if they had like proper Star Wars music in Galaxy's Edge, if it would, how it would feel different, if it would really like benefit or maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see that going both ways, because some of that Star Wars music, like if they used like the original John Williams score, some of those moments and motifs in that music is like very specific to certain emotions you feel when watching the movies.
Yes.
And you may not be feeling that emotion when you're in the park at that moment. It may not be fitting for what you're doing
Sure.
to have that on a loop. So I think it could benefit from like an original score that
Yeah.
would just be Galaxy's Edge, and it would have to kind of be like a, generic adventure sounds, which they do have that, they did release those few tracks, but you don't really hear them other than a few times. Like on Smuggler's Run, you hear some of those tracks, and I think that's about it, really, is during Smuggler's Run. It could benefit from something like a generic kind of adventure-y sounding thing, but again, you have to be real careful as to what you're trying to evoke with that music, I think.
Right, especially given the different parts of Galaxy's Edge. You have the First Order area, Resistance area, and obviously, you'd probably want to have music be a little bit different.
Yeah, and you experience that music again in Smuggler's Run, and a big part of it is in Savi's workshop. When you're doing that presentation, the music in there is perfect. It's really, really good, and it helps move that show. And I think that's why people have such like a an emotional moment when they're building their lightsaber is that music, the lighting, the mood, everything in there is done so well so that people do have this like, wow, I'm building my lightsaber cut. You know, it really does get to you when you're in there, and part of that is the music.
Yeah, I'll need to do that at some point. It's just like past couple of times, it's like there's so much to buy, there's so much to see and
sure.
to drink and just kind of like, okay, well, where do I want to spend my money this time? But yeah, I'll have to do that, just at least, if nothing else, just for the experience of it.
Yeah, for sure. I think like I have all the lightsabers now at this point, which is ridiculous. The only things that I haven't really gotten that I'm on the fence on is the Jedi robes. At first, like I actually got the Resistance pilot costume too. Like I had to pull the trigger on that eventually. I was like, when I first saw that they were making it, I was like, oh, I'm gonna need it. And then I got there and I went and I was like, okay, I don't need to spend that kind of money on a Resistance pilot costume. And eventually I was just like, no, I have to have it. But the one thing I've held off on is those Jedi robes. And I think the next time I go, I might end up coming home with Jedi robes.
Yeah, some of them look really cool. They also have like Palpatine's robes, and they have like Rey's outfit, and
yeah, they've got dark ones. They've got Palpatine's like thicker big cloak. But you can also mix and match. They have like different colored belts, and so you can do like dark grayish robes and go with like the brown belt, and get the hood that's maybe a different color. So you can kind of play with it a little bit.
Yeah, that's super cool. So one of the things that I've heard a little bit, and I don't have kids, but you have kids. Have you taken them to Galaxy's Edge?
I do. Yeah, 2 boys. I did take them back in August.
Okay, so I've heard a few people say that there's not a whole lot for kids to do, and I mean I can kind of see that. Like when I've gone, obviously there's not like any kiddie rides like you would have in certain areas of Disney, but
I feel that definitely depends on the kid.
Okay.
Because I've definitely I've met some followers of mine who the parents watch my channel with their kids, and these kids were so into it and so into everything about it. And we're talking little girls dressed like Rey, little boys dressed in pilot outfits, and they are all about it. Like it doesn't need to be something like to do because they're in it.
That's
they're
really cool.
high-fiving characters. They're running around with Vi Marati on a spy mission. And so it really depends on the kid. My kids personally, my oldest is 14. My youngest is about to be 11. They were okay about it. They were kind of meh about it, but they're also like that about theme parks in general.
That's funny.
They're just like, okay, we'll go. But they don't get as excited as I do.
That's funny. Yeah, I think that's a good point, though. It really would depend on the kid, right? I mean, some kids gravitate more towards certain aspects of theme parks, and I think if I was a kid, I would love just being there for the atmosphere and being able to walk into the shops and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I ended up coming home with a Resistance pilot outfit. I was like, you know what? When I was a kid, I never would have been able to get one of these, and you only live once,
right?
So I'm getting it, and I'm gonna enjoy it now because this is the only time I can.
Very nice, very nice. So, as far as how Galaxy's Edge evolves going forward, obviously we still have this Rise of the Resistance ride that's going to be opening up in the near future. What else do you want to see change in Galaxy's Edge? We talked a little bit about walk around characters, but what else do you want to see in terms of its evolution?
Well, we know that they're working on a sit-down restaurant, like a dining experience, like a show, I don't know what better way to explain it, but there's been concept artwork of it, and it's already being worked on. It's going to be somewhere near the First Order area and Oga's, like in between there is where it's going to be put. So that's coming. We know that's coming. We don't know when. But as far as what else I would like to see, that's one thing. A show, like somewhere where I can pay extra and sit down and just enjoy Aliens and Star Wars. Like that's really what I want. Is maybe, I don't know where we could fit another attraction, but something, maybe, a small attraction, something simple. I don't know how or what. I know they scrapped there was going to be they weren't banthas. There was a different kind of creature that you could ride that was originally in the concept artwork, and that got scrapped. And I would really like to see something like that. Just more creatures, more aliens. That's what it's missing.
Yeah. I got really sad when I learned about that, because that would have really added to the atmosphere, which, the atmosphere is already pretty great. But
yeah,
when you think about the liveliness of the whole thing, I mean, it feels like you're in a world on a Star Wars planet, but it does feel a little bit uninhabited. It feels a little bit sparse.
You're absolutely right.
So I think that's one thing I would certainly like to see is a little bit more life. Walk around characters, whether it's like droids or aliens or just
droids creatures. Would be really nice. But so one thing I would like to see is if there was walk around characters, but with less. Think of it more of like show. Like maybe characters kind of walk out. One walks out similar to the same way like Vimerati slinks around and hides from the First Order. But more of a chase. I'd like for a chase to just break out in the middle of the street, which is maybe there's a safety concern there of cast members running through the crowd, but just something like that. Yeah, that'd be very Star Wars to all of a sudden have someone like fake shooting blasters or something. Again, we get into weird like crowd controlled safety issues if they're shooting fake guns or whatever. But it'd be very Star Wars, wouldn't it, to have like that guy stole my credits, and then everybody take off, like a character runs after him, or it's just something like that. That's what Star Wars is. It's that scum and villainy. It's those it's that kind of stuff where just like all of a sudden something just happens and everybody just like turns and looks like what, and then it's done before you realize what it is. It's done. And it was just like, oh, that was cool. And then everybody talks about it for a little bit. And maybe 30 minutes later, another one of those things happens, but it's slightly different. Yeah. Something like that would really just change Galaxy's Edge and make it feel more whole and inhabited, like you say. Yeah,
totally. I do appreciate what they have currently with the walk-around characters. But like you said, there's not too many. I think last time I didn't see Rey the first time, but this last time we did see her. We saw Chewbacca. But, it's just kind of like there's so many people following them around that you can't really even appreciate them so much.
And that's why I like Vimerati. She's, I don't know if you got to see her at all.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, even if there is an adult who maybe wants to talk to her, she makes it short and sweet. She's like, okay, here we go, but I got a mission to go on. And she'll start, going back to just her slinking around the land, kind of hiding around corners. And sometimes she'll, get kids and she'll kind of lean down and get in with them and be like, okay, we got a mission. And it's like she'll take 3 or 4 kids and they got to hide from the First Order stormtroopers. And you'll see them slinking around the land doing their thing. And the parents are, 10 or 15 feet away just watching, taking pictures. So stuff like that is really cool. And you kind of have to look to see it. But it's happening sometimes. It's like one of those things you have to pay attention, but it's there. And I think we need just a little bit more of that. Well, actually a lot more of that. But it's there. They've started it. It's just we need, I don't know. They got to do it a little bit bigger and a little bit better, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's Disneyland in general. People are just constantly rushing to the rides and here and there to get in line for the latest popcorn bucket and maybe not really taking in the scenery or
Now that's one thing I don't want in Galaxy's Edge is stuff like the popcorn bucket, where we have to have a bunch of lines for the new exclusive item.
Yeah,
I hope that if they do have a Galaxy's Edge exclusive item, it's handled in Tomorrowland. Or it's handled somewhere else, and I think they're aware of that, and I don't think they would do that, or at least not yet. Who knows what changes will come in the future?
Right.
But yeah, that's one thing that I like about Galaxy's Edge is that it does operate a little bit differently than the rest of the park.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. No. So it'll be interesting to see where things go. I definitely think that if they do the restaurant and it could potentially add quite a bit to the land, and anything else. I think you're totally spot on adding another ride would be great if they were able to figure out how to do it and where to do it. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the land evolves, because clearly it doesn't seem like it's 100%. Even with Rise of the Resistance not open yet, it seems like maybe there's still a few things that are trying to be ironed out. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And once you do go to Florida and check out their Galaxy's Edge, we'll have to circle back around and compare and see what's different.
Yeah, definitely. And then I want to compare the differences between Rise of Resistance over there and Rise of Resistance in Anaheim, if there's any.
Yeah.
I have a feeling the queue might have a little bit. There's always subtle differences, something's placed somewhere else, or just the X-Wing might be over here instead of over there. But there's always something they add to it.
Oh yeah, they'll definitely. I think I even heard the rockwork was a different color, wasn't it?
It is, and the buildings are painted a little bit differently. It's due to weather, because it gets rained on all the time. Their color scheme's got to be a little bit different to hold those colors. So they're a little bit brighter and bolder in Florida than the stuff is in Anaheim.
Right on. Well, Dan, hey, it's been a pleasure having you on the show once again. Let's do this again after Rise of the Resistance opens and you've been able to check out Florida. And yeah, it'll be really interesting to compare and see how things are different between the two parks. So where can our listeners go to find you online?
You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/The Dano Channel and on Twitter as well at The Dano Channel.
Fantastic. Dano, thanks again for coming on to the show today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
If you aren't already, subscribe to the place it all started, the Victoria's Cantina YouTube channel, where I review new toys and showcase retro toys from the past. You can also follow us for news and updates on Facebook by looking up Victoria's Cantina, toy photography on Instagram at Victoria's Cantina, and a constant drip of toy-related and other random and nonsensical tweets on Twitter at Vic's Cantina. If you're so inclined, we are on Patreon. Gain greater access to Victoria's Cantina by becoming a Patreon Cantina patron. For as little as $1 a month, you'll help to keep the show going and also get exclusive content such as access to a private Twitter feed, early access to toy reviews, and behind-the-scenes featurettes. And if you can't, but you still want to help us out, one of the easiest and most helpful things you can do is leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts. It only takes a minute, so hit that 5-star rating and leave a note stating why you enjoy the show. It'll make us more visible on iTunes and help others to find our show. As always, I'm Victoria, and no matter where you're listening out in the galaxy, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to the Cantina Chatter podcast.